and gentlemen, HTLA 97.3 FM in New York proudly presents rock superstar Crash Jesus.
Oh, and you know what? I can play that too. Good evening, Crash Talkers. Welcome to Crash Talk on HTLA Radio 1 New York. Coming to you live, 9 p.m. Eastern, with Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Deception. Yeah, cool, huh? Made that one up myself. Anyway, we're all gathered here tonight for another one of my controversial shows, and tonight is going to be no different than it usually always is. I'm even going to piss off some personal friends of mine right here live on the air, so you won't want to miss this one. Oh yeah. Today, of course, we are talking about Guns N' Roses. Roses of condolences and guns, and more guns, and did I mention guns? We're talking actually today about the tragedy at Sandy Hook in Newtown, Connecticut, which was rocked last Friday morning when a 20-year-old by the name of Adam Lanza broke into Sandy Hook Elementary School and opened fire, killing 20 students and 6 staff members, along with his mother and finally himself. And around 9:30 in the morning, Lanza approached the school building and, unable to open the locked doors, shot his way through a window near the front office to gain entry to the school. He carried 3 weapons and multiple rounds of ammunition. Yes, he did. He had a confrontation with workers at the office where Principal Don Hochsprung was shot. The school psychologist Mary Sherlack was also shot near the office. Lanza then proceeded down the front corridor of the school building. Lanza stopped first in the kindergarten teacher Caitlin Roig's classroom. Roig had hidden her students into a small bathroom in the building and told them to remain silent. Lanza, seeing an empty room, moved into an adjacent classroom where he killed substitute teacher Lauren Rousseau and all of her students except one who survived. Now, when he heard police coming toward him, Lanza shot and killed himself using a handgun in the classroom in the front hallway. Lanza also shot his mother in the face multiple times. Yes, nothing says loving your mom like shooting her in the face. Killing her at her home in Newtown that morning, before leaving for Sandy Hook Elementary School. Because, you know, after I shoot my mother repeatedly in the face, I like to go to the elementary school. Yeah, no clue. Anywho, Lanza's mother, Nancy Lanza, 52 years old, she owned the guns that Adam used in the attack. Lanza carried with him 3 guns, including a 9mm SIG, a 10mm Glock, but most of the victims were shot multiple times using a Bushmaster 223 assault rifle. Yeah, semi-automatic too, for some of you folks out there that I'm going to get to in the coming program. It's going to be fun. You're gonna want to hang out. Yeah, so there we are. And we've got ourselves a nice pile of bodies here, don't we? We've got Charlotte Bacon, 6 years old. Daniel Barden, 7 years old. Rachel Davino, 29 years old. Olivia Engel, 6 years old. Josephine Gay, 7 years old. Anne Marquez Green, 6 years old. Dylan Hockley, 6 years old. Don Hopsprung, 47 years old. Madeline Sue, 6 years old. Catherine Hubbard, 6 years old. Chase Kowalski, 7 years old. Nancy Lanza, 52 years old. Jesse Lewis, 6 years old. Anna Marquez Green, 6 years old. James Matoli, 6 years old. Grace McDonnell, 7 years old. Anne-Marie Murphy, 52 years old. Emily Parker, 6 years old. Jack Pinto, also 6 years old. As was Noah Posner, Caroline Previdi, Jessica Ricos, Eville Richmond. Lauren Rousseau was 30 years old. Mary Sherlack, 56 years old. Victoria Soto was 27. Benjamin Wheeler was 6 years old, and Allison Wyatt, 6 years old. Those are the names of the people that were killed in that particular massacre. And yeah, well, hey, you know what? let's digress from all of that fun, shall we? And I'll give you a little bit of background on myself here, because I'm sure as some of you regular Crash Talk listeners know, I am a graduate of a Canadian Police Academy in May of 1999, the Justice Institute of BC. And I have since gone to work in a professional capacity carrying sidearms and shotguns and all kinds of good stuff. So I have kind of a special perspective on one end of the subsequent and ensuing explosion of rhetoric and crap and fighting and bickering and media and all the rest of it about guns. Yes, guns. It's the guns that did it. I actually did a little test with my own guns, the results of which we'll get to a little later in the show. But a couple of things I want to say by starting off here with we've got a lot to cover tonight. I've got tons of information from all different angles about this entire situation, dating back to Columbine and even before. We've got a problem in America. And it's pretty much just in America, because yes, I've gone over the stats of many other countries, including my home country of Canada. And yeah, I got some interesting stuff for you, so you're going to want to stay tuned for all the good stuff coming up. But before we get to all of that sweet old Crash Talk goodness, we've got to say that tonight's episode is
powered by Procast.
Thank you, Kate. Yes, tonight it is absolutely 100% powered by Procast. No Kimber firearms tonight. No, not going there, are we? Anywho, thank you again for joining me on HTLA Radio 1. Very much appreciated, and I think that now that all of the niceties have been dispensed, we should move on with our show. Now, we're going to start off this tonight with a letter which was written by a gentleman by the name of Eric Blair, who runs a blog called The Activist Post. And it's a very good article, and so I'm just going to open up with that. And then I'm going to get into some other points that have been brought up to me by some of you listeners out there. Some links and some information that you brought to my attention today. So I'm going to get to that stuff too, because that kind of all intertwines, and you'll see where I'm going. Anywho, Eric says that the political storm taking place in the aftermath of the tragic school shooting in Newtown is unprecedented. The internet is currently ablaze with demands for stricter gun laws, the banning of all guns, and even for killing gun owners. Yes, I've seen that too. The issue of gun rights has just become so much more heated. It's normal to react emotionally to such an awful event, he says, especially when we can relate to the victims. The shooting hit home for me, he says, much more so than others in the past, because I'm from a small town in Connecticut, and second, because the principal that was killed was also my son's kindergarten principal before we decided to homeschool. So I deeply understand the grief. However, we must do our best not to react out of emotion and try to maintain some of our logical sensibilities. Even gun rights advocates don't know how to respond, because the usual arguments like self-defense or that guns don't kill people without someone pulling the trigger are lost to those grieving. What's more disturbing is that some gun control advocates seem to be equating the right to own a gun with the right to commit violence. These are two different things, he says. No one has the right to commit violence or kill. That's why we have laws. The right to own a gun is not a license to kill. It's a right to self-defense. And I believe, he says, that self-defense is a God-given right, maybe even an obligation to preserve ourselves. The devil is in the details, however. Possessing a gun should not be a crime. Misuse of the gun against another is a crime. In a sense, it's like drug prohibition. Drug possession should not be a crime simply because they may cause the user harm, But if the addict violates someone else's rights, theft, assault, etc., while on drugs or to get drugs, then they broke the law. Speaking of prohibition, he says, were fully automatic Tommy guns to blame for Al Capone's violence, or was it the policy of alcohol prohibition? Additionally, do gun control advocates believe that they will get rid of guns by prohibiting ownership of them? He says drug use has gone down since prohibiting drugs, right? That would be no, for some of you listeners out there. Yeah, tragedies and accidents will happen, and they will cause pain, he says, but no amount of gun control or nerfing the world will prevent them. It's also unlikely that even very limited right to purchase firearms would slow pace and severity of these tragedies. These tragedies are shocking because they are not the norm. Some argue that the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms in defense is outdated. Is the right for a citizen in Afghanistan to own a gun outdated? Is it in Israel or Chicago? America is no different. Perhaps because there are so many more guns in the hands of street thugs here, it's even more vital to protect our right to self-defense in the United States because of it. I agree that there should be limitations on firepower, but citizens should be able to possess equal force to anyone that they may have to defend against, including law enforcement. Therefore, if there are any legal limitations on guns, it should extend to all possible aggressors. In other words, cops should not be able to have fully automatic assault rifles if citizens aren't allowed to have the same. The government should not have a different set of laws than the people. Because we all know where that goes, don't we? Of course, he says no citizen should have advanced military weapons like rocket launchers because they aren't used in law enforcement in the U.S. yet. So I don't condone the right of personal ownership of nukes, but I also don't condone it for our military either. It's shameful that the U.S. has 12,000 gun homicides per year, yet over 75% of those are gang-related. What did you say, Crash? Gang-related? The homies in the city centers? No, it's not them, it's the guns. I'll read on. The motivation behind the seemingly random acts of violence against innocent people in Connecticut and Aurora and all the other places is much more difficult to determine than Al Capone's violence, yet it is just as important because the guns did not cause the violence. Mentally unstable people did. And I'm going to interject here just before I finish off his great post here with the fact that I did speak with some mental health workers today, this afternoon in fact, and we were speaking about this, and you know, they said that they were very frustrated and upset because the media, quote unquote, I didn't feed them these words, they gave them to me. The media was talking all about guns, and don't forget the guns, and here's your guns, and the guns did it, and Gunsmoke, and OK Corral, and the guns. She says they failed to mention, and she says they have in case after case after case that goes through the media ringer, absolutely failed to mention anything to do with the mental health of the perpetrators in all of these crimes. And I'm going to get to that a little more in just a few minutes here after I finish up this great read here. Now, everyone who is hurting over this incident is clamoring for a quick fix to prevent this type of tragedy in the future, obviously. Unfortunately, he says there is no quick fix because this is a deep morality problem. And maybe even a psychiatric or, dare I say it, a drug problem, not a gun problem.